Brad Lawson hadn't joined the Crestwood Police Department for glory. At 24, he only craved the electric rush that came from running toward sirens. In the first 18 months, he did exactly that, hauling a crash victim out of a burning sedan, talking a distraught veteran off the rail bridge, sprinting solo into a hardware store when a gunman's shotgun blast echoed through the aisles. Newspapers printed his picture. Children begged for selfies at parades, and even the crusty dispatch sergeant started pinning "Good job" sticky notes to his locker. But small-town applause fades faster than city traffic lights. Once the front-page stories turned into back-page blurbs, Lawson's name slipped from the evening news, and he found himself patrolling empty streets under buzzing sodium lamps. That's when privilege whispered its first invitation. A downtown diner owner, grateful for that hardware store heroism, slid him a steaming mug labeled "Heroes Coffee" on us. Lawson protested. Department policy forbade freebies. The owner waved a hand. "Just thanks for what you did." Lawson accepted. The next night, he ordered a slice of cherry pie, again on the house. A week later, he conducted a traffic stop and let a driver off with a verbal warning after noticing the family-owned gas station logo on the bumper. The grateful driver pressed a preloaded fuel gift card into Lawson's palm. Once you cross a line without consequences, that line disappears. He soon perfected a show. Before every shift, he polished his boots to a piano black sheen and set his aviator shades so low on his nose that citizens mistook the reflection of their own faces for disapproval. The stiff brim had added 2 inches to his height, and the gold sergeant's badge caught porch lights like a beacon. Junior officers mirrored his swagger, hoping it might elevate them too. But Lawson's magnetism rested on an elaborate quid pro quo, favors traded for silence. When the barbershop refused his money, Lawson spent the saved cash on flashy belt accessories that made him look more federal than local. The new leather baton holder, the carbon fiber flashlight, the extra magazine pouch, each item signaled invincibility. In return, Lawson overlooked the barbershop's expired occupancy permit. A grocery store chain tested a weekend sale without city approval. Lawson forgot to tell code enforcement after the manager brought groceries to the squad room. The pinnacle came when Mayor Janet Cooper, keen to keep Crestwood's safest mid-sized town award, gifted him box-seat baseball tickets in exchange for a discreet favor, relocating nightly patrols toward the waterfront where her re-election banners hung, ensuring vandals never got close. Lawson obliged, and the banners stayed pristine. Voters attributed the intact posters to the mayor's fearless leadership, never suspecting the one-man security detail. Chief William Hart should have noticed the swirl of unofficial perks orbiting his sergeant, but Hart's desk calendar cared about one thing: crime stats. Every Monday the chief sent a spreadsheet to the State Oversight Board. As long as burglary, assault, and vandalism trended downward, Hart's phone stayed silent and his budget intact. Lawson realized Hart had turned unwitting accomplice the night the chief clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Keep those numbers pretty, Brad. Makes my life easier." The message was clear. Appearance beat accuracy. So Lawson edited reality. A convenience store stick-up with a pellet gun became attempted shoplifting. An all-night domestic dispute downgraded to verbal argument once both parties sobered up. Officers submitting detailed reports found them later in the shred bin, replaced by Lawson's sanitized half-page summaries. Anyone who complained discovered vacation requests lost, shift schedules rearranged, or performance evaluations suddenly marked needs improvement. By the time whispers about Lawson's lane surfaced, the corruption had congealed into an ecosystem. 3 nights a week he set up an unofficial roadblock on a dim stretch just outside downtown. With only his cruiser's backup lights for cover, he flagged down cars and invented violations: improper headlight angle, cracked taillight, uneven tire tread. Some drivers walked away with illegitimate citations, guaranteeing a court fight they couldn't afford. Others were offered a shortcut: pay cash now, avoid the paperwork. The cash vanished into a zippered pouch tucked under his duty seat. Junior officers occasionally happened upon the scene, but Lawson dismissed them with a fatherly pat on the shoulder. "Just clearing drunks before they reach Maine," he'd say, waving them along. They complied, partly because they enjoyed the trickle-down privileges, the free barbershop cuts, the all-you-can-eat breakfast burritos from the diner, but mostly because they'd seen what happened to colleagues who challenged him. Foot patrol in the industrial district, midnight to 8 a.m., 6 days straight. Citizens talked, of course. A retired librarian complained that Lawson confiscated her factory-sealed bottle of cough syrup, claiming open container. A college student swore Lawson had pocketed his vape pen under threat of a narcotics charge. Yet every formal complaint stalled somewhere between reception desk and disciplinary board, mysteriously misfiled. Lawson's empire might have remained invisible if not for the data trail. To keep numbers down, he filed hardly any DUI arrests, yet paramedics reported a rise in single-car crashes just beyond his checkpoint zone. Neighborhood watch logs noted suspicious late-night stops that never appeared in official blotters. Crestwood's picture-perfect statistics started smelling like fresh paint over mold. But Chief Hart, blinded by his own success, never scraped beneath the surface. Even so, a few uneasy voices grew louder. Sergeant Denise Alvarez noticed gaps in patrol car GPS records. Lawson's cruiser often vanished from the grid for 30-minute chunks. Rookie dispatcher Corey Lynn sent an anonymous memo about shredded reports he'd found in the recycling bin. These hints hovered like storm clouds, yet they scattered whenever Lawson breezed into the break room, dropping off donuts from the very bakery he'd exempted from parking citations. Fear, Lawson had learned, walks faster than justice. With every informal payoff, the badge on his chest gleamed brighter in his mind, not as a promise to protect and serve, but as an enchanted shield warding off consequences. And as long as Chief Hart's Monday spreadsheet kept shining, no spotlight pierced the darkness around the man Crestwood secretly called the King Without a Crown. The air on Maple Avenue felt heavy enough to drink. A mid-July heat wave had settled over Crestwood like a damp blanket, and the fireflies blinking above the cracked pavement seemed to sweat right along with the people. From open windows came the slow hum of country ballads, clinking bottles, and the hiss of backyard grills searing burgers for Little League celebrations. It was the kind of night when most officers prayed for an uneventful shift, everyone except Sergeant Brad Lawson. For him, the languid dusk offered camouflage. Drivers were relaxed, guards were down, and wallets were loose. He chose Maple Avenue precisely because it straddled two worlds. On the west end, modest ranch homes with flag-lined porches announced no soliciting. On the east, aging warehouses loomed like tired giants, their steel doors tagged with graffiti that City Hall promised to scrub someday. Lawson parked his cruiser where the deer trail dark of the warehouses met the glow of porch lights, then stepped out to lay a neat row of orange cones. His roof strobe flickered a muted blue, not enough to draw supervisors, just enough to spook passing motorists. To complete the trap, he angled his spotlight so it dazzled oncoming windshields, forcing drivers to slow and squint while he took his pick. At 7:13 p.m. sharp, the navy blue hybrid appeared, a late-model sedan with dealer plates and exactly one dent on the rear bumper. Inside sat Eleanor Ellie Parker, 33, earbuds dangling as she mouthed the final lines of a true crime podcast she'd been studying for an upcoming wrongful arrest case. Her satchel held a laptop still warm from marathon legal research, and the cup in her center console was lukewarm chamomile tea, her caffeine-free ritual that kept stress tremors at bay. Lawson's practiced I saw none of that. What he registered was a solitary driver, female, no passengers to witness, no kids in the back seat to cry and complicate things. Perfect. He raised 2 fingers and motioned her forward. The hybrid's electric motor made so little noise that, for a surreal moment, the scene looked like a filmed set, car gliding, lights strobing, fireflies punctuating the air like floating punctuation marks. The sergeant rapped the window with a knuckle polished smooth by years of this very gesture. Ellie rolled it down halfway, enough for courtesy, but not surrender. Humid air and a hint of hickory smoke swirled into the cabin. License and registration, Lawson demanded, his tone a mixture of authority and annoyance. You were swerving back there. Ellie's hands were steady when she passed the documents through the gap. "Officer, I haven't changed lanes in the last mile. Can you clarify where you observed swerving?" His mirrored aviators flashed. In them she saw herself, ponytail, wary eyes, the ghost of her dashboard lights. "You questioning my observation?" He shot back, pronouncing every syllable as though stamping it on official paper. Before she could answer, he leaned in, pretending to study her rear-view mirror. "Brake lights out. That's a fix-it violation. And I didn't see a turn signal at the warehouse in trance." Ellie followed his gaze to her fully functioning brake reflection on the cruiser's bumper. She realized this wasn't policing. It was fishing, and she was supposed to be the day's catch. "Officer, I'm confident both lights are fine, but if you believe otherwise, I'd appreciate seeing the evidence." Her voice stayed even, honed by countless depositions. Lawson straightened, lips curling into a half-smile. "Evidence? Ma'am, you seemed impaired, maybe drowsy, maybe something else. We can handle it two ways. I write you up for unsafe driving, equipment failure, failure to signal, plus a DUI screening. That's court fees, license points, insurance spikes, or—" He tapped the ticket book against his palm, letting the pages flutter like currency. "You settle a $250 civil penalty right now, and we both save time." Behind the calm mask, Ellie's analytic mind raced. She noted his unbuttoned shirt pocket, the faint bulge of a cash clip. She smelled faint mint gum, not alcohol. This man had prepared to sound official yet approachable. But she also knew the law, and her own dashcam system. Small suction cup cameras at each corner captured a 360-degree view, audio included, uploading automatically to encrypted cloud storage, because she never trusted onboard memory cards after previous case. "I'm afraid I can't authorize on-the-spot payments, Sergeant," she replied. "Please proceed however you believe is appropriate." Instant frost replaced Lawson's faux warmth. He snatched her documents with a snap, jotting furiously, though Ellie could see he wasn't writing details, just angry loops of ink meant to look busy. The ticket packet grew thick. Improper lane usage, malfunctioning equipment, reckless endangerment, obstructing an officer. He even penciled in a court summons for good measure, initialing each line with dramatic pauses, as though imprinting guilt. When he shoved the citations back through the window, Ellie thanked him. Genuine politeness was another shield, and eased her hybrid out of the cone funnel. The electric motor hummed. She passed a row of curious neighbors who lingered on porches, beers midair, wondering who'd angered the badge tonight. Once she reached the far stop sign, and Lawson's cruiser shrank in her mirror, she pressed a discreet button on her steering wheel. A soft chime signaled that the last 10 minutes of footage had been locked, duplicated, and fired off to 3 secure servers, plus her paralegal's inbox. For Lawson, the July night still brimmed with opportunity. He spun on his heel to wave down the next car, unaware that the clouds above were rolling darker, not with thunder, but with the coming storm of accountability that Ellie's quiet click had just unleashed. 2 weeks later, Crestwood Municipal Court was its usual morning mess, a mashup of tired attorneys, caffeine-fueled clerks, and everyday citizens clinging to hope that their minor infractions might be dismissed with a warning or a sigh. The waiting room hummed with the rustle of traffic citations, the tapping of impatient shoes, and the unmistakable scent of burnt coffee leaking from a broken machine. Sergeant Brad Lawson entered like he owned the place. Click, click, click. His pen tapped against his palm like a metronome of menace. With aviators perched on his head and his duty belt hanging heavier than needed, he swaggered past the benches, his eyes scanning the crowd. He offered a confident smirk and even a wink to a young man holding a speeding ticket. This courtroom had long been his turf, and for Lawson, case number 22, State versus Eleanor Parker, was nothing more than a scheduled performance. He expected a quick ruling, a quiet fine, and perhaps a scolding for Ellie, who, he assumed, had no idea how justice worked in his town. But he hadn't counted on the storm she'd prepared. Judge Margaret Owens, known for her calm demeanor and no-nonsense bench rulings, entered briskly, robes swishing behind her like a curtain about to rise. Calling case number 22, State versus Eleanor Parker, she announced. Ellie rose from her seat with deliberate grace, her charcoal blazer crisp, her hands steady, her expression neutral. Your Honor, she began, voice as smooth as morning fog. Before we begin, I'd like to submit preliminary evidence for the court's consideration. She handed over 2 USB drives, one for the clerk, the other for the prosecution. The courtroom stilled. No one expected motion evidence in a case over routine traffic violations. The bailiff, with a glance from the judge, dimmed the lights. 3 large monitors flickered to life like blinking eyes. The first video rolled. Clip 1. The rear of Ellie's vehicle on a quiet road, her brake lights glowing a perfect cherry red at every stop. The timestamp matched the moment Lawson had claimed her light was out. Clip 2. A full dash view of Ellie's hybrid cruising within clean lane markers. No swerving, no abrupt movements, just smooth, careful driving. Gasps rippled in the courtroom. But the final clip was the hammer. Clip 3 audio. Lawson's voice crystal clear. Pay now, avoid court, no receipt, sweetheart. The silence was immediate and deafening. A moment passed. Then another. No one moved. Even the prosecutor, a man who had once tried to defend Lawson's reliability, sat with a slack jaw and blinking eyes. All confidence drained from Lawson's face. His fingers stopped tapping. He looked not just rattled, but undone. Ellie clicked to the next slide. A clean, side-by-side comparison of Lawson's official report versus the video truth. Report, swerving between lanes. Video, flawless lane alignment. Report, non-functional brake light. Video, fully working light at multiple stops. Report, slurred speech, delayed responses. Video, Ellie's voice calm, articulate, alert. The judge leaned forward. Sergeant Lawson, please approach the bench. Lawson straightened, then adjusted his shirt collar, as if that might restore some dignity. He moved slowly, more like a man heading into surgery than into court. Yes, Your Honor, he said, trying to reassemble his tone into something resembling control. These are serious contradictions, Judge Owens stated. Do you have any explanation? Lawson cleared his throat. Digital files can be manipulated, Your Honor. It's possible this footage was edited. Without breaking eye contact, the judge nodded toward the clerk. We subpoenaed your department-issued bodycam following Ms. Parker's discovery motion. Your footage confirms the same events, down to the word. Lawson blinked, suddenly pale. The courtroom felt smaller now. His badge, once a shield, now felt like a spotlight. Ellie watched from her seat, composed. She wasn't smiling. This wasn't a victory lap. This was accountability in action. Judge Owens exhaled slowly, then turned back to the room. The court finds the charges against Miss Parker to be entirely without merit. They are dismissed with prejudice. A murmur spread across the courtroom. The judge raised her voice, just slightly. Furthermore, due to apparent misconduct, including falsified reporting and solicitation of payment outside lawful procedure, I am issuing a referral to the county grand jury for review of potential criminal charges against Sergeant Lawson. I am also recommending an internal affairs investigation at the department level. The city will cover all court costs on behalf of Ms. Parker. Boom. It was done. Lawson's eyes darted toward the exit, like a man trying to wake from a bad dream. But no one came to his defense, not even the prosecutor. He turned and walked back to his seat, shoulders heavier than before, silence trailing him like a shadow. For a decade, Brad Lawson had believed Crestwood's courtroom belonged to him, that he could script outcomes, bluff evidence, and bully truth. But in 10 minutes, on 3 screens, Ellie Parker had flipped the script and forced the whole room to see what lay behind the badge. And for the first time in years, news traveled faster than Crestwood's evening trains. This time, it hit like a bullet. The morning after the courtroom bombshell, KCTV9, the town's local news station, scrapped its planned weather segment and went live with the breaking news headline in red. Sergeant Brad Lawson caught in corruption scandal, exclusive dashcam footage exposed. Over and over, they played the clip, Lawson's voice, captured in crystal clear audio, saying, Pay now, avoid court, no receipt, sweetheart. It was the kind of line that didn't just ruin careers, it rewrote legacies. By lunchtime, national news outlets had picked social media. The hashtag #LawsonGate trended across the Midwest, eventually climbing into national top tens. TikToks reenacted the courtroom moment. Instagram feeds flooded with memes. One showed a Monopoly card that read, "Go directly to jail. Do not collect $250. But the headlines were only the beginning. The footage gave long silent voices a megaphone. Within 24 hours, former victims began to emerge, not with rumors, but receipts. A local baker named Carla Romano stepped in front of a news camera, holding yellowed invoices and a trembling voice. He said my bakery had unreported vermin sightings, she told reporters, unless I paid a $300 inspection clearance fee. I paid. I was scared. My shop feeds my kids. A college sophomore recalled a night when Lawson pulled him over near the campus parking lot. He said my vape looked suspicious. Said he could charge me for possession unless I cooperated. I gave him all the vape sticks I had. He laughed, called it evidence, and never filed anything. A retired janitor, Mr. Leonard Banks, went even further. Lawson showed up at my house 2 years ago. I just won $5,000 in the state lottery. Next day, he said there was a clerical error and demanded I hand it over or face fraud charges. I gave him $3,000. He never came back. The floodgates opened. Within 48 hours, Internal Affairs reopened 12 dormant complaints previously marked inconclusive. Suddenly, names long buried in the system returned, and the corruption map started to look less like isolated incidents and more like a 10-year pattern. At first, Chief William Hart tried the old playbook, minimize, redirect, deny. But when pressed by reporters, he stammered on live TV. The department takes these matters seriously, and we will fully cooperate with the investigation. By the following morning, loyalty gave way to survival. Lawson's badge, gun, and access card were stripped before dawn. A photo leaked of him sitting in a chair outside the IA office, badgeless and stone-faced, arms crossed like a petulant schoolboy. His cruiser was reassigned, his nameplate removed, and his desk, once a shrine of framed letters and department plaques, stood empty by noon. During the inquiry, Lawson tried one last trick, the stare down. He squared his shoulders, lifted his chin, and fixed his coldest glare on each accuser, hoping to spook them like old times. But this time, something had changed. Public scrutiny had replaced silence. Witnesses arrived armed with documentation. Every room had cameras now. In just 3 weeks, the grand jury returned multiple indictments. Official oppression, using his position to unlawfully pressure civilians. Falsifying public records, manipulating citations, reports, and bodycam logs. Solicitation of a bribe, the infamous $250 demand that started it all. Tampering with evidence, selectively deleting footage or misfiling documents. Facing a potential 20-year sentence, and knowing that more victims were still coming forward, Lawson's legal team scrambled for a plea deal. The conditions were tough. 5 years in state prison. Forfeiture of all pension benefits. Mandatory public apology. Permanent revocation of law enforcement certification nationwide. When the terms were read aloud in the courthouse, Lawson barely blinked. The same man who once chuckled as he tore up traffic tickets now stood stiff in a cheap suit, hands trembling behind his back. As the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists, the cameras didn't wait for permission. The shutter clicks came like applause. Only this time, they didn't celebrate him. They sealed him. He tried to flash his trademark grin. It fell flat. The badge that once gleamed on his chest now felt like an anchor dragging his name through every news cycle in America. In the weeks that followed, Crestwood's police department went into damage control. A civilian review board was quickly established. All officers were retrained on traffic stop procedures. Every complaint desk received a visible sign that read, "Every voice matters, we're listening." Chief Hart submitted an early retirement request. And Eleanor Parker? She refused interviews, declined book deals, and instead began hosting free legal workshops at the community center. The first one filled all available chairs. The second had standing room only, because now in Crestwood, the people finally understood. The badge doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you accountable. Ellie Parker declined the spotlight. When national news anchors called for interviews, when podcast hosts offered speaking fees, and when true crime channels wanted her courtroom footage for dramatic reenactments, she politely refused every one. To Ellie, victory didn't mean headlines. It meant education. A week after Brad Lawson's sentencing, Ellie returned not to a podium or a TV studio, but to Crestwood's town library, where she set up a modest seminar titled, Know Your Rights in a Traffic Stop. No camera crews, no press releases, just folding chairs, a donated projector, and a community still reeling from betrayal. Word spread fast. Parents brought teenagers still fresh from driver's edition. A line of Uber and Lyft drivers filed in with notebooks and questions. Even two rookie police officers, plainclothed but easy to spot, sat near the back, their posture a mix of curiosity and caution. Ellie noticed them, nodded once, and continued. Her slides weren't flashy. No legal jargon. No scolding tone. Just practical steps wrapped in calm authority. Ask for badge numbers and names every time. Keep your hands visible and your phone recording. Request that all citations be provided in writing. Never take a verbal threat at face value. If something feels wrong, write it down immediately while your memory is fresh. One mother raised her hand and asked, "What if they say I'm resisting?" Ellie answered gently, "You have the right to document. You have the right to ask questions. And if you do it calmly, clearly, and with purpose, you give yourself both power and protection." The room leaned forward, not because they feared the system, but because they'd seen how easily trust could be broken. For years, Crestwood had carried the illusion of peace, unaware that its uniformed guardian was trading protection for profit. The ripple effect. Ellie's actions and the evidence she provided didn't just expose Lawson, they forced Crestwood's leadership to look inward. The very next week, the department launched monthly body cam audits, with footage reviewed by a mixed panel of officers and civilian observers. Previously dormant complaint boxes were replaced with QR-coded digital forms routed directly to a third-party oversight board. Most notably, a civilian review board was formed, made up of local educators, clergy members, retired legal professionals, and 2 youth representatives. Their mission: to evaluate use of force incidents, review misconduct claims, and ensure transparency in policing practices. It was a seismic shift for a department used to handling its own. Officers were also rotated out of solo traffic checkpoints, a direct response to how Lawson had turned those quiet hours into personal shakedown opportunities. Now, no officer worked a stop without either a partner or a visible backup unit nearby. It didn't erase the past. It didn't make victims whole overnight, but it was a beginning. And with each policy change, each training update, and each community forum, one message echoed louder. As trust is earned, not assumed. His story no longer lived in the swagger of midnight stops or the fear he once wore like a second badge. In county jail, he sat among men who'd once been at the receiving end of his threats. The uniform he'd polished so proudly was replaced by a number. His schedule, once his to control, was now dictated by meal trays and security rounds. He tried at first to walk tall, to summon the old smirk, the courtroom stare. But no one flinched. His name, once spoken with deference, now came with eye rolls or silence. He was no longer feared. He was forgettable. In town, his legacy hung in the Crestwood Police Museum, not an honor, but as a cautionary tale. His badge was mounted beneath a glass plaque that read, "Power without integrity invites its own downfall." Visitors often paused there. Some took photos. Most didn't smile.